Hello everybody, this is Spacenik here. Before I launch into this week's topic for the Holy Host providers, which is LGBT characters and TV, I'm going to do my recap of my week. So first of all, I want to say Chodesh Tov. We're now in the month of Tammuz on the Hebrew calendar, so that's exciting. I don't know if you follow news in Israel at all or anything, but the Women of the Wall they prayed this morning at the Western Wall, and basically their aim is to have equality on the women's side and pray as they wish. So a lot of them come from the Reform movement and other progressive movements and wear talesim, the prayer shawls, and tefillin and everything like that. And so they've gotten a lot of opposition from ultra-Orthodox sectors. And but today they went and the police helped them out and protected them, so they were able to pray in peace. So that's good. I think it's good for the future of religious diversity in Israel. There's still a long way to go. So my week, besides work, which is not very exciting, I have bought a new pair of tefillin, which are in this bag. So that's cool. I use them on weekdays in the morning to pray. I also just came back from Blue Stockings, which is an awesome queer leftist radical bookstore in New York City on the Lower East Side, and I bought a couple books. I bought Normal Life by Dean Spade, and I bought Whipping Girl, a transsexual woman on sexism and the scapegoating of femininity by Julia Serrano, which to me seems really, really interesting because I just, skimmed through the introduction, and her premise is that a lot of hatred of trans women is based on misogyny, and the idea that femininity is artificial and performed and therefore not as genuine as masculinity. And so she's calling for an end to the notion that femininity as a concept is inferior to masculinity and maleness. So I'm looking forward to reading that. So here we go. TV and LGBT characters. The first question is, how do they deal with LGBT characters on TV? I'll admit I don't watch a lot of TV, so I'm not as familiar with how this goes as other people might be, but I'll take a stab at it anyway from what I have seen and what I've heard from other people. How they deal, from what I've seen, obviously LGBT characters are appearing more and more in mainstream media, on TV shows like Will and Grace, Queer as Folk, things like that, and even on the news, especially with the same-sex marriage issues gaining prominence and support throughout the country. So it depends what you're watching. Sometimes they'll deal with LGBT issues very respectfully, other times not so much. And then some people like, bisexuals, trans people, genderqueer people, asexual, we tend to get ignored completely. Or if we're not ignored, especially when it comes to trans people, we're pathologized, we're made to seem psychotic or unnatural, there's something wrong with us. For example, in Law and Order, I've noticed that the few times trans people have appeared, they've either appeared as hookers or drug addicts or just psychotic maniacs, which is not good. So that needs to be worked on, definitely. And Fox News, I think it was last year, did a spot on asexuality that was not very good at all. They called us lepers or something. You can look on YouTube. It's not very flattering at all. And so there are still a lot of misconceptions out there and a lot of work that needs to be done to show that we are normal and that we have a diversity of experiences. So I guess that leads into the next question, which is about stereotypes. Oh yeah, the stereotypes that trans people are crazy, like medically imbalanced, emotionally unstable people. You see that a lot. The idea that asexuals are also medically abnormal, and that we would be normal if only we, got the right amount of hormones or medicine or something like that. This happened on an episode of House. I don't remember the name of the episode, but it happened, and I saw it, and I was very upset. Not that I watch House, but it was very upsetting. The next question is, where do you find there is a lack of characters within the spectrum? And for this, I would say that there is, well, when queer characters do appear, they're usually gay males and white gay males at that, and cisgender, obviously. So even lesbians get the short shrift, which is problematic. Obviously, there are shows like The L Word, but it's still not enough. It's just, I mean, I would like to see more, more of everything. But mostly the more forgotten letters of the acronym. Bisexual people, trans people of all throughout the spectrum, so transsexual, genderqueer, everything. Asexuals, obviously. I'm asexual. And the way I see it, I mean, with how queer characters are in the media or on TV shows, it's almost like how Jewish characters are, in the sense that they're there, but even though they're there, there's not much. They're not really explored or fleshed out. So I noticed that with Jewish characters, they mention offhand that they're Jewish and might make a joke or something about Hanukkah or whatever, but their Jewishness is not really probed. It's not featured prominently. And in Christmas specials, I mean, even if they even mention Hanukkah, sometimes Jewish characters are celebrating Christmas alongside everybody else. So I think that the same thing, the sort of similar problem applies to what's going on with, oh, I noticed this is messed up, with queer characters, that when they're there, they're mentioned, kind of, but there's no real depth to their experience. So I would like to see more depth as far as that goes. And the fourth item on the agenda for this week isn't really a question, but it's to provide a specific TV example of our topic, LGBT characters on TV. And so the only show I watch regularly is Doctor Who, so I'm going to talk about that. Now, Doctor Who is a show with a long history. It's 50 years of characters and stories and all kinds of things. And I'm mostly a classic Whovian, but I'm going to talk here mostly about New Who. First, I'm going to talk about the show under Davies' show-running tenure, and then under Moffat, and the differences that I notice. So, under Davies, queer visibility is normalized. It's just part of the fabric of the universe. There's nothing particularly strange or sensational about it. So you have Jack Harkness, who's this, in a way, this embodiment of masculinity. He's dashing, he's a hero, he's flirtatious, but at the same time his sexuality is fluid and doesn't define him or put him into a box. So I really like that. I think that's a very positive representation of queerness on TV. And you have minor characters as well. Some positive, some not so positive, and some I'm not quite sure what to make of. For example, Cassandra, the bitchy trampoline you guys may remember from a couple episodes, once made an offhand comment, something like, you remind me of me when I was a little boy. So that to me shows that Cassandra may be trans, but it's just sort of a one-off comment. And I didn't notice it the first time, actually, so I'm not quite sure what to make of that. But then when she takes over other people's bodies, you can see a more literal representation of queerness, that she goes from, well, she possesses Rose, and then she possesses that other guy whose name I can't remember, poor guy. So there's that. There are also the Cassini sisters, quote unquote, in the episode Gridlocked. They're presented as just a normal couple, you know, this adorable couple together in this car, and I really liked that, even if there was a little bit of a joke at their expense in it. In the episode Midnight, which is written by Davies himself, there's the character Sky Silvestri, who briefly mentions an ex-girlfriend, and mentions it in such a way that it just seems like a normal part of life. There's nothing odd or strange about it. It's just, how life is. People come in and out of your life, and that's how it is. And also, another episode under Daisy's tenure, The Unicorn and the Wasp, features a hinted relationship between two characters, Roger and Davenport, one being a footman and the other not a footman, more upper class. And spoilers, one of them dies. And Donna mentions, it says this: "The poor footman. Roger's dead, and he can't even mourn him. 1926, it's more like the Dark Ages." So having a prominent character like Donna acknowledge that the oppressive silence imposed on queer people in the past is wrong and sad. It's a wonderful thing, and I think we need to see more allies like that on television. So yeah, basically, under Moffat's showrunning tenure, queer characters generally are well represented and featured in ways that don't make them unusual or distinct from heteronormative cisgender characters in obvious ways. Now, under Moffat, things are a little different. Let's take River Song, for example. She's apparently bisexual. I have yet to see her mention or be in a relationship with a woman. It just, her whole existence seems to resolve around the Doctor, so I guess she's more like heterosexual by default. And that to me is definitely a problem, that it's almost queer baiting, that she's supposedly queer, but you never actually see her being queer. So, and that happens a few times under Moffat with different characters. Then you have characters like the fat one and the thin one in A Good Man Goes to War, who are Anglican Marines. They don't even have names. They're just, their whole existence is a joke. The thin one says, "Hello, I'm the thin one, this is my husband." He's the fat one. And another Marine, who is named, her name is Lorna, says, "Don't you have names?" And the fat one says, "We're the thin, fat, gay, married Anglican Marines. Why would we need names as well?" So that says it all right there. I mean, I don't even know what I can add to that. It's frustrating that they're just kind of a throwaway joke, that not even worthy of names. And also, more recently, you have Oswin in Asylum of the Daleks, who, played by Jenna Louise Coleman, who mentions, just sort of to tease Rory, that the first boy I ever fancied was named Rory. Actually, her name was Nina. I was going through a phase. So that just further reinforces the stereotype of bisexuality as not being a real sexual orientation, but just kind of a transitional stage, so that if you're in a queer relationship, it's just not really real. It's just kind of like just experimenting. So it's kind of voyeuristic and very problematic, in my opinion. Let's see, who else on my list? Oh, Susan the horse in A Town Called Mercy. The Doctor says he's called Susan, and he wants you to respect his life choices. Now, I'm not quite sure if that was supposed to be a representation of a trans character, or if the horse just likes the name Susan. Either way, it's just a throwaway line. Again, just the butt of a joke. And the fact that the only trans character is a horse, to me, it doesn't really respect our experiences or our existence. But mind you, this was written by Toby Whithouse. And he also wrote an episode of Torchwood, I believe. And in it, Jack Harkness says the following: "A friend of mine, let's call him Vincent. That was his name after all. Regular guy, girlfriend, likes a sport, likes a beer, starts acting a little strange, a little distracted. Suddenly he disappears for a couple months. He comes back, and we've got to start calling him Vanessa. Since then, I've always been a little nervous when a friend behaves out of character. Mr. Whithouse seems to have a track record with regard to transphobic or just generally bizarre, not trans-friendly comments. And of Jack Harkness, of all people, I mean, it just does not fit. And actually, before we get on the Moffat hate, that Torchwood episode was written, I believe, under Davies' tenure, so Davies had his problems too. So, so in sum, I think that it's kind of a mixed bag when it comes to New Who. You have some positive queer characters, Jack Harkness, even Madame Vastra and Jenny, even though at first their relationship was mostly based on crude jokes. But it seems to have gotten a little more developed, which is good. So you have that on one end, and then you have throwaway, jokesy types. And you see more of them in the most recent seasons, which I think is not indicative of the series heading in a good direction as far as queer visibility goes. So I really hope that they change that. And just, I might as well mention Classic Who. What queer visibility? I mean, there was nothing. Nothing. I mean, different times and all that. So I'm personally inclined to think that the Doctor is asexual. And I base that mostly off a comment that the Fourth Doctor made in the Serial City of Death, where he's talking to a woman and says, "Oh, you're a beautiful woman, probably." So I think that comment was put in place to kind of diffuse this fear that some people had, that since the Fourth Doctor was, up till that time, the youngest actor to play the Doctor, there was kind of like a hanky-panky in the TARDIS thing going on with his companions. So that was counter to that. And so I liked that the romantic stuff was de-emphasized. And I'm not just saying that as an asexual. I mean, the show, to me, is about an explorer in a blue box, roaming through time and space, righting wrongs, and the romantic element in some ways would be too distracting. But, would be nice if the Doctor were asexual, but that's just my headcanons. I have no real proof. I really don't think he likes River Song either in that way, but, that's just my opinion. So, that is my bit on LGBT characters and TV. I'm sure other contributors will have other things to say, and talk about shows that I don't even know about. So I hope you enjoyed it and share your thoughts. If you have any questions or comments, you can shoot me a message on Tumblr, and the link is in the description and also on our About page. So I look forward to seeing you all next week.